I just want y'all to know my chair is squeaky. Good afternoon. We are here. I am here. You are listening to Carolyn Berry and myself.
Yes, and Biba, we're listening.
We do not have an agenda, and it's going to be real obvious. It's going to be more obvious about me because I have had a stressful 5 days, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Carolyn Berry is with the Alzheimer's Arkansas, and my delightful and wonderful, faithful friend. But as I mentioned, the organization, their goal, their responsibility, their purpose is to care for caregivers.
Absolutely.
Did I get that out right?
You got that out right.
We're going to touch on a few things. If you're new, you won't know about this, but March 31st, Carolyn and I were in the middle, not together, of an extensive, I think, F4 tornado here in Little Rock, Arkansas. She was at the office and saw the aftermath driving home. Took her hours just to get home because it was so extensive. I was here with my mother, who has Alzheimer's, and we hid out in the bathroom. It's been, April, 4 months? Yeah. We got the work done to the house very quickly, which was a huge blessing. So I am thankful to God for his provision. That helped.
Yeah.
It helped me, but it also helped Mom. Now, if I was here by myself, I would have been okay with some delays, obviously. But I knew for her we needed routine. So I bring that up because I've had the last 5 days, though everything in my world as far as recovery and repair is done.
As you thought, but you thought it was done.
You know, once I got that fence up, which I did, got the fence up, I was like, that's done. But as in any kind of situation, tornado, you were going to have rogue trees that were compromised, and you're not going to know about it till later. Now, we had kept an eye on one that is directly behind my house at the very corner in my neighbor's yard, and we knew, first of all, it was just a weird tree, just a bizarre tall pine tree. So it was already a weird tree before the tornado.
I like weird tree.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm glad that's not my yard, because that is a weird tree. It was the tallest tree, and it has it's top heavy, but it's taller than every other tree in his yard, my yard, and the other neighbor's yard. So we were watching it, and of course, I've been outside a lot, picking up debris, doing this, doing that, in the last 4 months, and I've been keeping an eye on it. And then it was probably about a week ago that I noticed it was leaning heavily on his electrical wires from his house to the transformer. Mm-hmm. And my heart just started racing. I was like, that is really leaning. Now, for those of you, usually July is like a desert.
Yeah, it has, probably in the last few months, 2 months, Arkansas weather is kind of dry, but we have had a wet summer, absolutely wet summer.
And we're talking rain in a deluge type of situation, accompanied by high wind events. Mm-hmm. Like the high wind events that you do put a helmet on, even, if you're used to putting a helmet on during a tornado, which my mom and I do if there's tornado warnings, high wind events, the same thing, because a lot of death occurs and damage because trees go down. So every high wind event compromised that tree even more. And I would just watch it sway. Again, I'm in the yard a lot more. And so about 5 days, last week, I just put a call into my neighbor and told him, it's leaning extensively on your wires. He goes, he knew that. He had already called a tree guy to come out and look at it. Now, let me back up a minute. Myself and the neighbor, Miss Foster, next door, had already called Entergy to come by and look at it. And someone did. They didn't get out of the car. What they were looking at, and I'm not being ugly, they were looking at the way it was leaning, and it's our responsibility, it's the neighbor's responsibility to deal with anything that's leaning towards his line going from his house to the transformer. Same here, any neighbor, that's your responsibility. Yes. If it was facing their main line, done deal. But again, if someone had gotten out of the car and actually walked up underneath it, they would have seen how close it was to the transformer. Okay, so there's that. No foul at this point. So I thought, wow, it's going to be on my neighbor to pay for tree removal. And, we've already, all of us, been through so much of out-of-pocket due to the tornado. So he had a tree guy come. That guy looked. I said, we need this down. And I was going to partner with my neighbor because he's an older gentleman and has a lot going on with his own house. And I had a vested interest because the reason I got extremely anxious is it decided to lean more towards my home and over our bedrooms.
Yes.
It made it amazing that it, and again, Carolyn, I kept looking because I thought, why is this thing leaning? Because the ground did not look, I thought it was because of the saturation. Well, the other neighbor said, because it's rotten right there, and pointed it out. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so there's that. So I went into I'm already hyper-vigilant person. But since the tornado, everything is more dramatic when it comes to possible harm or damage. And trees are my enemy at this point because it's the trees that cause so much damage to our home. So he called, we met with that guy. I was like, can you get it this week? Can you get it? And this was Sunday. I called another, because you want to get 2 bids, called another guy, recommended from someone down the street. He came, great guy, looked, got all underneath it. This was yesterday morning. Because again, it's imminent. The wind, we've had so many wind events. When's the next one? We had one just recently last Friday, and Mom and I put our helmets on, and I made her come to the middle of the house. And then he looked up at it, and the last thing he said is like, guys, I can't remove this tree. It's 10 feet or something from the transformer, and it's OSHA guidelines. All I needed to hear was him spitting out all these details.
Guidelines, yeah.
Right? So you need to call Entergy. They need to do this. We're not allowed to. And I thought, well, I got lightheaded because I was like, I got to put a call into them. What if, it was just stressful. But I did put a call into him, and a neighbor down the street called his friend who works at Entergy, had him come out immediately. I sent pictures, and I said, it's any day the tree's going to fall. And I gave him the new details about how close it was to the transformer. So this morning, what is this, Tuesday?
It's Tuesday.
They rolled up, girl, and took that tree down. And it was amazing to watch their skills and what they could do, because it was so scary. But they had the bucket truck. Neighbor right next door agreed to let them take the fence down. Brand new fence since the tornado. But it had to be done. And it's gone. So I'm grateful. Now I can relax and then think, and I can see all the different ways God orchestrated that. Mm-hmm. And so happy about that. But I bring that up because part of me just wanted to cancel today's podcast. But I'm like, I don't have to be professional. I don't have to be all on it, because I feel like I've been doing really well until there is a situation like that, and then I'm a basket case.
So I think this conversation, so on the outside looking in, is very important for caregivers for a number of reasons. Caregiving is not your only issue, like per se, like the issue. It brings a lot of stress and guilt and grief. But life does not stop lifing. That does not stop other issues. It didn't stop the tornado. It didn't stop the tree. You still have to be able to caregive and deal with life, right? So caregiving affects, and I don't think most people really kind of get this, all other aspects of your life. Because you're thinking about, what if this happens? What if the tree falls? What if our lights are out again? Like, how is that going to affect the person you're taking care of? How it's going to affect you? So all of these things that sometimes we may not even look at as an effect of taking care of someone, like the tree, it's actually playing a role in your decisions, because like you said, even tornado, if it had been just you probably would have responded differently.
Yeah, and even this tree, because I am responsible
Yes.
for her
Yes.
and her safety, and she's out there picking up and doing what she likes to do in the yard, and there's that tree swaying. But I think once, you can't help but all of a sudden take ownership. And I beat myself up, like, why didn't I get on this sooner? You just do those things. And then I told you that Mom's incapable because of her Alzheimer's of understanding the underlying tension, danger, stress.
And even what's going on from moment to moment, because you said, she can walk away, kind of forget, and then you have to explain all over again. And that makes us short. You're already agitated, anxious, and then you're like, here I am again, trying to explain what I don't really even have the answers to, because you didn't know if energy was going to come out, why they didn't the first time. So all of these things, like, life plays a role in all the things, and sometimes we don't see it when it's us. And we also may feel like we're overreacting, and then you're like, am I overreacting? But it's none of that.
Well, all right, and I lost it a couple of times. Now, you brought up something. I had no control over that tornado. I did what we needed to do to be safe and get through it. Then afterwards, there were so many details, and I had control over being able to make some decisions, etc. But that tree, I knew about that tree. It's been an issue for months, but it's not my tree. And then all of a sudden I feel a great deal of responsibility of, oh my gosh, another shoe has dropped. And this one, what if that tree falls tonight? And I could have, you know what I mean?
Yes. And I think when it comes to control, I think we all have, at some point, some control issues. We think we're in control of things that we are not. We want to be in control of things, but we have no business being in control of them. Like, we just take responsibility for things, and it's hard to define what should we be control over, where do we have control, where don't we have control. Control is a big issue in our lives, and I think it plays out a lot in the caregiving aspect. Control over, and methods. So control and methods, because in some of our worlds, 1 + 1 is supposed to equal 2. But in caregiving, just because I do these things does not mean my loved one is going to respond in this way.
Right.
Right?
Amen to that.
But we want it to happen, because if I did this, so in response, they should do this. But you have to realize they're not functioning on a capable brain.
Reasonable, logical.
Rational. So your 1 + 1 is not going to equal 2. And if it does, you better hold on to that thought. So you think about the tree, you kind of talked about it, but it's not yours. what were you supposed to do?
Yeah.
But another thing about control is, and I think this is where anxiety comes from, if it had a failed, it would have affected you.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
Oh, it would have.
But you have no control.
It would have crashed into the same side of the house we just got repaired, or it could have killed one of us.
Yeah.
So I had semi-control over that reality, did not have control over that tornado that came. And I was thinking about what you just said about, so yesterday was stressful. I felt better when I walked next door to talk to the crew guy and what he was going to do. And I just okay. But I was still so wound up, and I had a friend come by to visit who I haven't seen in a while, who knows me well. She used to be my roommate. But I wanted to come in, and I wanted to hug her and cry. I was when I was told that the electrical people were there, I was like, oh, and I wanted to cry. And then when I saw her, I just wanted to cry because I had that bent up, but I couldn't because Mom was in here visiting with her. And so I could not do what I feel like my spirit wanted to do. And I had to keep it cool because, yes, of course, my mother has asked about why I'm inside and outside a lot. And I'm like, well, they're removing a tree. Where? Whose tree is it? Over and over and over again. And again, has no idea that I'm busting my booty to get this done to protect our home and us. I don't tell her that, but one of the things I did do, she goes, okay, so I said, well, the tree's leaning towards it. Oh, yeah, the tree's leaning towards our house. We got to get that down. And I said, but I'm on it, Mama, because I learned from you, is you weren't ever going to let something like that go. And so I gave her kudos. And it didn't matter that 5 minutes later she wasn't going to remember what we talked about. But quite honestly, I have her in the back of my mind because I watched her for years deal with issues and situations. And I channeled her. I don't like that word. I didn't mean to say that. I took what I observed and learned from her, and instituted it in this situation. And so, knowing that I did learn those things from her, I wanted to tell her, and it felt good to say it out loud. There's no sense in telling her everything else. But yeah, so I did not have an opportunity to process whether it was breaking down, because I was near panic attack. Now, you and I've talked about this. Without a doubt, I have PTSD from that tornado and the sounds and the sights. So that was elevated, and it just wears on you. I couldn't sleep, and but I would have liked the opportunity. Now, my friend did listen to me, and she knows me well, so I didn't have to pretend. Mm-hmm. So Mom excused herself, and then she prayed for me, and then we just went on to talk about other things, and it was just helpful. It was a good day. And again, it could have been one of those things, because I had to run a quick errand, and she said she was in town and wanted to drop by, and I could have just said, no, it's not a good day. I'm not doing well, and I'm dealing with an emergency. But those are the things you don't want to not do, or you don't want to shut off that opportunity.
So
as a caregiver,
it is often said that this disease is very isolating. Very isolating. So I'm so proud of you for taking opportunity that you could have easily turned away.
Yeah, even you today.
Yes, because
you would have been mad if I'd told you.
I will not be mad.
Well, you would have been like, Deba, because you've been trying to teach me these things.
Yes, but I think a lot of caregivers have to understand, if you do it once, so if you had to do it yesterday, told her it's not a good day, it would have been easier to say it to me today. And maybe that, because it just becomes...
Yeah, good point.
easier to, oh, I told them yesterday, not a big deal. I don't feel like it today. So,
It's a good reason.
But yeah, and then before you know, you truly are isolated because people, we give you space. A lot of people learn, they may still call, but they're like, oh, she's not really feeling it. And we can make excuses. And on the other side of that conversation, in some ways trying to give you the space that we may feel like you need, but you don't need that space. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. It does. It's not healthy.
It's not healthy. And even if it's better to have a bad day with a friend. I mean, it really is. Than I didn't have to share by yourself in isolation.
And I already knew. I already knew that she was going to accept me, and she's very discerning. So I didn't have to. I mean, I immediately told her I was next door. I'll be right there. I'm dealing with an emergency. And when I came in, my energy, my spirit was just all over, like and I knew it was going to take a little while to calm down. And then, as we talked about, I had to fudge how I was really doing because Mom was in here, and I wanted her to enjoy talking. And again, I don't need to be reminded. I've understood this process. They will feed off of your emotions. And so, since she can't do anything about the tree, and she can't do anything about me, because she needs me, she can't do anything to encourage me like my mom used to do, or to give me a strict, guideline or explanation about something or her opinion. She can't do that. So I can't open myself up because I would have been extremely disappointed in that because it's not real,
So I'm going to say in some way it's a balance. So everything, that's a skill set to be a caregiver for. Remember that. Someone with Alzheimer's, any dementia, it's a skill set. It takes a great amount of skill to be able to navigate, right? Because you do know that she's going to feed off your energy. You know her emotional intelligence is there. So figuring out how much, where, how, and not to cause harm to her emotion, like that's a skill set. So the other thing is in your skill set is learning to, and you kind of did it, I'm proud of you, but you had to hold it. So that's the internal part because your mom was around. Like us learning to say, I am not okay is so important because we've been groomed and raised to say, and I talked to some caregivers about it this morning, it's okay to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to say I'm having a rough day, 5 days, week, month. It's okay. And you find that person that you can trust, and they may not can fix it, but it's okay to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Because we're not always okay. But we have been groomed and raised. Trained to say we're okay on our worst days. And I think that's not good to our mental health.
Yeah, and so that's what's good about. Now, if it had been someone else that just stopped by. Now, of course, I knew she was stopping by, and I already know the character of person she is and who she is in my life. So, again, I didn't have to pretend, but I had to pretend with Mom.
Yes, for a moment.
So even when I'm sitting here trying to visit with a friend who I haven't seen in 6 or so months, Mom's out there because she sees men out there, and she loves to be involved. And I'm like, hang on, I got to go get Mom. She's, of course, spotted them in the backyard, in the other neighbor's backyard. So she's got to go check it out. So I stayed calm, and I just said, Mama, we're not supposed to be around that tree. We're not supposed to be over there. And I'm saying things that she doesn't even understand, even though I told her about the tree. And she's like rolling her eyes because she doesn't see any danger.
Yes.
And I said, those men are working and it's a dangerous situation. Okay, whatever. Like she thinks I'm just making it up to get her to come inside. And so we got that dealt with, and then I came back in here, and then we ended up having a really sweet visit. Again, I'm grateful that she stopped and prayed for me, and then we just settled in. But yeah, all right, so there's that. There is realizing that you were going to be, we've talked about triggers before. My mother this morning, on one of the most exciting days of my life, but stressful, because I saw that they were here with their bucket truck. Mom just kept picking on me and teasing and acting out. And I did not handle that well. It really, really bothered me. And on another day, I would have just, she does that often when she's feeling kind of feisty and really when she's acting like a 5-year-old. And this morning she was. So it is what it is. So I did lose my temper, meaning I raised my voice a couple of times. And I hated that because then that got all up in my neck. And I didn't say anything specifically to her, but like if she was talking, I would go, "What?" Mom, I'm in the kitchen, that kind of energy. Frustrated that she's trying to talk to me on the other end of the house to tell me about the roofers across the street, which I'd already seen 15 times. So I really was like, wow, I'm jacked up.
I'm not going to say you jacked up. I'm going to say, when are you going to let that cry out that you're holding in still? Because I still see it.
I know, but it's there. I know it's there because
it's
while
on
I
the
was
edge.
painting.
Yeah. It's on the edge.
While I was painting, I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry at the light at Mississippi and Cantrell, but I had to focus. I don't know. I can't make it happen, but it's there.
It's there. And so you're human, right? Can we first, let's talk about before you're a caregiver, before you're a daughter, you're human, right? And you got all of this pinned up negative energy that you need to let out, and you feel it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to happen at any moment, but you're trying not to take it out on your mom. And sometimes I question, because everything is not about her not seeing you in a negative, like I say, negative emotion. Because let's just say crying. It could be, it could be tears of joy, tears of sadness, of relief. Like, you got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Is it not okay for her to see you cry?
Well, even before Alzheimer's, she did not like it. She would always try to dry up my tears, go get me an aspirin. It bothered her. And so, yeah, I'm not saying that I haven't cried in front of her since she's been diagnosed. But it's weird because she doesn't like it, because she knows she doesn't like it from even past. So we really were not allowed to express ourselves emotionally because it made her uncomfortable. Now, I used to boo all over, on her lap all the time. So it's not as if she was like, stop crying. It's just, I could tell she was like, why are you so upset? Then she'd go, it's going to make you sick. You're going to get sick if you cry.
My mom used to say that too.
Well, and it does. It can get my tummy all up
Really?
a sick.
I never remember being sick, but she's like, it'll make you cry. It's like, okay. But it also, you don't feel good if you don't let it out either. So.
I know. And, yeah.
Would it be a horrible thing, though, so let's go back to the tornado, right? And I always say, sometimes we have to go back to our original relationship with our loved one. So you're a daughter. She's a parent. And remember when you were like in this panic mode.
Yeah, she told
and
me
she
to calm
said,
down.
she showed up
Yeah.
in that moment, right?
Yeah, and I was like, yes, ma'am, you know how I get during storms. You're right.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying it'll work, but consider, although she doesn't like it, like how would it feel to her, not to you, because I know how it would probably feel, like to her, for you to put your head in your lap and cry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, every gift is not like the happy, joyous. Some of the gifts we get come from the most, emotional kind of experiences.
No, to be honest with you, I almost and wanted to do that today.
You did?
Because you're right, it's there. And I have another situation that's on my heart and mind, which I won't go into publicly, that I talked to you about, that's weighing on me.
Yeah.
So even though, and it's only because of the way I used to handle worrying about this person. So I've grown up a lot, and I'm, in regards to what's my responsibility, what's not my responsibility. But I'm feeling those things. So on top of that, that's still in my system. Because you remember, it does make you sick.
Yeah, you gotta.
Oh, I can feel it in my neck. I tried to get my massage this week. Yeah. She's going to come Saturday.
But what we owe ourselves is not completely to always show happiness. When you're educated on they feel your emotion, it's more about being able to manage and understand what happens after. So, because I call it reset. She can be really easily reset.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if you need her in a moment, like you need to cry to her, with her, put your head in her lap, I would say probably, I always say a good engagement is if you put your head in her lap, she'd probably rub your hair.
Yeah, like she used to
Like,
do.
because it's just.
And she might get up and go get me a wash rag.
Yeah.
It helped cool,
Yeah.
I guess her mother used to do that.
Yeah, so there could still be some value in that. Now, can I 100% guarantee it? I can't. But a lot of things she is capable because of emotional intelligence. And it might do you some good to be taken care of for a moment by her.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do miss that. Yeah, it's weird.
It is.
I do miss that. And when I say that my mom didn't like it when I cried, it's just because I was a big crier, and it probably looked like I was about to have a heart attack. Because it takes a lot for me to just go ahead and let it go.
Yeah.
And when I did, I did.
And
on
honestly,
the floor
nobody
crying.
likes to see anybody cry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I never liked seeing her cry.
So it may be a gift that she can give you a moment of her being the parent and you being taken care of, only for a few minutes.
It is weird that what you're talking about, because there are times when I do visualize. Now, being able to cry, not because a tornado hit the house and that there's all this damage, but because I couldn't have kept that in if I wanted to. I had to.
She's going to make me cry.
I had to let that go, like screaming at the tornado but when I was at the stoplight almost home and the neighbor had called and said that the electrical company was there, that was such a relief, and I wanted to cry, but at that time I was driving. And I wanted to cry because I was thankful. I'm usually in that state. I want to cry because I know God's provided. And that always brings me to tears. And then I immediately think, oh, look at all. He was going to provide about that tree, but man, I couldn't help but get stressed out, and I wish I did a lot of praying.
Yeah.
So, about, take that anxiety away, and, I was angry. I was angry at a lot of different people and aspects of the situation. You do what you can. I just thought, oh my gosh, the shoe to drop thing.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop. And so this was another one. It's like, we got through the tornado, we got through the repairs, and I just think, because I think the big shoe that's going to drop is Mom. That's my big shoe. So I think my body's always ready for that. I anticipate either her quickly descending into the last stage or passing away, but nevertheless, or really, really needing me more than she needs me now. And that means taking her to the bathroom, So I think, too, when you sit there and worry about other people in your life that you're not responsible for, but you're responsible to them because you love them, they're in your life. And I just don't want to worry. I mean, I don't want to worry about all that other stuff. I don't want to worry about that tree. I want to...
So maybe it's misplaced worry.
Yeah, probably. Tell me more.
Because, like, sitting here, I'm thinking, you're waiting for you don't know when your big shoe is going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
So you're worried. So other things give you other things to worry about, to focus on that worry of that tree, that worry of whatever it is, because you're worrying on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Or as you say, in constant state of grief.
Yeah. Constant state of grief. And I'm no therapist, but I would wonder, because everything is about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wonder, would it do you good to consider, first, how this is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
And it's the hardest thing to say to someone. And I've said it to more people than I like. It's not like a cancer diagnosis and maybe the treatment will work or some other things. The reality is we know how this ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the perspective shift is accepting that and looking at the gift of today. Because the reality is, although we know how it ends, we really don't.
Yeah.
Because
we don't.
We
We don't
don't.
know how messy it's going to be. We don't
but we
know
don't,
how
like, there could be
beautiful
other things.
it's going to be.
Right? Like, I've had people who thought Alzheimer's was going to be, it wasn't even Alzheimer's that
Ended up being like cancer
or
heart
even
attack.
just going to sleep. I mean, seriously, so we worry about things we have really no control over.
I was also thinking about how absolutely panicked I got. I did my deep breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do them as much as I should have. And then when I got lightheaded, I was like, I need to do my deep breathing exercises. But I think that, there's a beauty and a comfortability that I have being able to be right here.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of evil and sick and weird things going on in this world. Things that, as I'm getting older, obviously I realize we don't have any control over, that tree. But the government, everything. And I was doing okay being in that, you're saying being in the moment. And I was angry about the tree. That tree would not have been taken care of if I had not gotten so involved. But getting so involved stressed me out and caused me anxiety and just energy. And I had to go over there and deal with it and leave Mom and then come back. I was frustrated and angry about that. So I was angry with the tree, just like I was angry with the tornado. But, ultimately, I don't know. The world as it is, this is, how this is Mom's safe place. It's my safe place. It really is. So, that tree made it unsafe. The tornado made it unsafe.
Your boundaries of your safety.
Yeah. Physical safety. And, yeah. For the first time in my life, I bought a lock for the gate. I never locked the gate. And it's not because, we had a trespasser. No harm to us or the house, but a trespasser come in our backyard because all the fences were down. And I just thought, oh, that's odd. And I got a security camera. But I know it's not just that, because he wanted to get the copper out of the down transformer, so he wasn't trying to break into our house. But nevertheless, the thought that someone was back there sawing into that thing while we were sound asleep was bothersome. But, I'm seeing all this, I forgot what they called it. I'm going to call it tribe robbering. I don't know. I see it on the news where a bunch of people are getting together and they're just going into Home Depot and all these places and just stealing what they want, and there's no recourse or so I know that's going on out there. And the more I'm here, the less I want to be out there, right? So my safe place. And I don't know. It's a weird kind of day for me.
It is a weird kind of day, and it's okay to have a weird kind of day.
Yeah, I don't have proper thoughts. I don't have.
That's okay. So I'm gonna tell you this story that was handed down to me from my mother, from my grandfather. I want to talk about tornadoes. So I wasn't even born yet. So when my mom was a kid, their house was leveled. Everything they owned was lost in a tornado. My grandfather, his neck was broken but not snapped. So when I grew up, like, my grandfather had to turn, like he couldn't turn his neck. My uncle, he was a baby. His collar bone was broken, some other things. So like it was a lot of pain and physical hurt, and they lost everything. So moving forward, as they were coming out of it, and they never really fully recovered, but this was a lesson. So my grandfather would get absolutely anxious when bad weather would come. For some reason, she said he would get them out of bed in the middle of the night and drive like to this family member's house, and for safety. It was weird. She was like, it was weird. You could hear something in the middle of the night, and like he's like, we gotta go. So they would leave. So this one particular time, they were getting ready to go, and when they got there, the damage was done to that family member's house already, right? So they go home, and guess what? Their home is okay.
Yeah.
Right. So it's putting our faith, right? Like, in the aspect of his faith was like, yeah, we were okay. Like they were okay in the tornado. It caused anxiety and fear, but God is going to protect you wherever you are, or whatever happens is going to happen.
Yeah.
So from that moment on, they never ran anymore. So it was very impactful.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean,
So it's almost too like our story we were talking about. We know where your journey is going to end. In some places you're stressing about more because you want the control over
yeah,
and not dealing with some of the other stuff.
yeah, sure. I mean, I would rather have, you know, I do have control over my painting.
You do have. So that was so. And another aspect as we go there, one part of this is like taking care of ourselves, right? And how do we take care of ourselves? And sometimes, to be honest, I just love, but not really, when people say, well, I get my feet done and I go to a spa. That's not really taking care of yourself. Like true taking care of yourself is finding that thing that gives you calmness, like, and some self-care. Like self-care is, like you go get your feet done. If you get your feet done, you're going to get there. And it may feel good and it's your time. But you found this new skill that I love. Share.
First of all,
how it
never,
helps.
never, ever, ever would I have. Again, it's a sweet surprise. So a second event I attended that Carolyn invited me to was a painting event for caregivers, and of course I bring my mom. The first time she was cool. That was like 6 or 7.
It was in December.
Yeah, a long time ago. I wanted to try it one more time. I mean, I know that she's less about going out, and so I took her, and I didn't push her. I could tell. Even the room was set up different, but there wasn't the distraction of that little girl, which Mom loved last time. Mm-hmm. And she put a few strokes in, and I realized she just didn't want to do it anymore. And then I got real focused on it. And I told you that I was just really into it. The first time we did paintings with you guys, I was just real focused on her doing hers and mine. But I could tell that this one was for me. And it wasn't until later that when I was thinking about how much I enjoyed it. And I got Mom involved because I'd go, what do you think? She'd go, well, add some more here. Mm-hmm. And, but it was calming. One thing about that I realized, now this wasn't until later about painting. So I came home and ordered a starter kit with really bad brushes and like 5 colors and some canvases that came with it, little panels. And they were real tiny, and I did one for Carolyn.
Oh, it's beautiful too.
So I realized I wanted to do them as gifts, but never in my life have I painted. But while I was doing it, so I thought I'll do one every day. And I realized it kept me focused. Like, you have to focus on painting. Now, today, I told you when I was painting, I did it to take my thoughts away from that tree, because it was a done deal, and I wanted to continue doing a painting every day. And what I'm doing, folks, is I'm painting the birds that I take pictures of in the front yard that Mom loves, the little bluebirds and the babies and the robins. That's been since spring so fun. So I was taking all these pictures, and I thought, well, let me paint the birds, because it's about renewal and recovery. Because not only did a lot of people in this neighborhood have to do recovery and renewal and all that, so did the wildlife.
Yeah.
So, so it's been a sweet gift that once again God surprises me with, because of His love for His children, and I don't take a long time. I actually do them a lot faster than I thought.
Really?
Yeah, like I have to show you a robin I did right before, less than an hour that I did. I ordered me some new brushes. for more experienced painters.
Because you skilled now.
Yeah, in that. That's all I did was the brushes make the, I needed some with, I'm doing birds, so I'm doing really small stuff. And so I needed those brushes. And so that's been and I made one for Mom. And then my goal was to do them for the neighbors that, there were several neighbors that had to leave their home and are still out of their home. And then others who were able to stay in their home like us, but had to deal with the repairs and are still waiting to get repairs. And so it's been a way that I could walk over and say, this is for you and your family. I wanted to do these as an extension of what we've all been through. It's just about recovery and renewal, and it's been a real sweet opportunity. So I wanted to bring that up because you just never know. I mean, obviously the people at Alzheimer's Arkansas know. They know the different things that they try to institute for caregivers to get connected with, to get them motivated to get their mind off of being just a caregiver. So they provide these events. And then it's on you to participate. And I remember how much in December I enjoyed that. And then it didn't until this one did I realize there was more to it. It was really for me. The first one I just took to be for Mom, but this was they're set up for caregivers.
Yeah.
And I know many of us did bring our loved one. So it's been a lot of fun. I've gifted them. I've already done like over 30 paintings.
That's amazing.
Couldn't wait to have Carolyn here today so I could give her hers. Anyway, we're watching Mama out there picking up stuff, and I see her, and going back to what you said, I know how it's going to end, but not exactly, right? And I think what I was dealing with when the tornado hit, and now this tree that's all I want to focus on, and my painting, and my cats. So those other distractions, I know they were purposed, that they're a trial, and in that trial to discover who I am, what I'm capable of.
And that you're provided for.
Yes, and that, I mean, it's hard for me, even with this tree, it's so hard for me to there were so many different layers that I saw God at work. Even though it stressed me out, I can now, it's like with the tornado, I can look back and go, He provided that person at that time, He provided that, He provided that. And so I think, too, I just want my other loved ones to be okay. I don't want to have to worry about them, and I shouldn't worry about them as much as I do. And I get mad about that, because I'm already worried, for Mom and everything I'm doing, trying to be sensible. And you're right, it's kind of, you shared a great story about your grandfather, about, I don't know, don't you feel like we just learn lessons so hard? Don't we? All of us, it's not just me.
It's all of us. But how do you learn? Like we have to learn lessons and see evidence through lessons. So you're getting lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's a unique experience about caregiving. I always say caregiving ends up being about us and our shortcomings in so many ways.
Yeah, it highlights them all. Well, just like a mother having children.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who said when she got married, she didn't realize how much God was going to use that marriage to reflect things back on
relationships.
her.
Yes,
So,
our relationships. And you really think about caregiving, like when you get into it, you're like, oh, I'm going to take care of this person. I'm going to make sure they're okay. But then you don't realize how many lessons you're going to be hit with.
It's a cost to it.
It's a cost.
It's a good cost.
So it's like a sculpturing, though. Like it's really like sculpturing things out of who we are. Like it can improve who we are. It really can. It can make us worse too, but it's like taking those lessons and we decide, is this going to make us better or is it going to be a detriment to us?
Right. Well, you know what, Carolyn? We got to wrap this up for one reason only, is because I just want to get off of here and cry with my friend.